Hey folks, so in our last video, I went over and demoed how to take some brainstorming techniques and begin the research process. And so what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to take the things that I learned from my brainstorming, and I chose to do some free writing. I chose to do 3 perspectives and some journalistic questions. And I'm going to take this information that I now have, and I'm going to try and do some preliminary research. Preliminary research doesn't have to be strictly academic. It can be anything to help you kind of get some additional context before you move into more formative evaluations and trying to establish a research question. So I'm going to start here just by pulling from these highlighted ideas that I developed from my 3 perspectives, where I kind of have maybe some initial authors or concepts that I previously knew about, but then like these questions about over policing attendance and learning outcomes. So I'm going to start with just like a broad Google search. So I'm going to pull up Google and I'm going to type in, I'll do the surveillance state one first. So I'll do surveillance state and learning outcomes, just to see what pops up, right? It may not be anything. Obviously, I'm going to ignore the AI overview because it's often wrong. And right off the bat here, I have an American Civil Liberties Union and an ACLU article here, talking about how surveillance is used to discipline their friends, school surveillance, the consequences for equity. That might be interesting because that's from state boards of education. So I'm going to take a look at that one and open up this link here. So this abstract here is talking about how surveillance is often used with the desire to keep students safe, but it actually ends up being abused for a lot of unintended reasons, which is something I kind of touched on in my free writing. So this might be something worth exploring later as more broad, like education data. So I'm going to take this link here and I'm going to come over to my running document that I have under preliminary research. And I am going to copy and paste the link in there. But it may be useful for me to actually like give it a title, so that way I know what the link is more. So I'm going to say, copy and paste the name here. Oh, Lord have mercy. We want to paste without formatting. And let's see, does it have an author? It does. They have 2 authors here. So we have J. William Tucker and Amelia Vance. So I'm going to call it Tucker JW, because this is in APA 7, and Vance A period. Do they have a year where this was published? 2016. So I'm just going to, and I'm not going to do like a full citation. This is just to give me some initial information as I'm kind of conducting preliminary research. I think what I might do, and this is totally optional, but this is just something I'm deciding to do, is maybe getting a quote here. So like I thought this quote here was particularly poignant. So I'm going to just copy and paste that. There doesn't look to be a page number here, which is fine. It may not even be relevant later on. So I'm just going to put that there as just like a maybe, just to kind of keep it in my brain. Okay, now and that's really all it is. That's preliminary research is not digging much further than that. It's just kind of gathering ideas. But, that's just how we can navigate a Google search. But let's take a look at if we were to use the UC Santa Cruz library. So if I want to look up anything about I mentioned Foucault and Davis, so maybe I can put in the panopticon and see if anything pops up for me there. It could be articles, it could be a book, it could be, oh, look, there's a video potentially. Let's see here, the panopticon. Let's see. See. You see how too broad of a search it might be? Maybe I should look at peer-reviewed journals. Still too broad. So let me do like panopticon and maybe I can do like school systems to kind of narrow my focus a little bit. See if there's anything in that vicinity. Privacy and panopticon. Online mass surveillance, deterrence of chilling effects. That's not really working. So I'm going to try something different. I'm going to try and do panopticon and abolition. See if that yields anything. See. Ghosts in the panopticon. That's not going to work. Traveling. Let's see. You might have to go a couple pages in just to see if you find anything that might work. Countervalence, Self-Foucault, reverse the optics, camp abolition, ending carceral humanitarianism in Kenya. That doesn't really work for this. Abolition of what? No, that's not going to really work here. The prison before the panopticon might be interesting because I was actually asking, what does over policing look like what does policing look like before over policing? So that might be something interesting. And it's a review. So it's not a peer-reviewed article. It's probably a review of the literature, which is fine for the sake of preliminary research. So let's see if I can access it. Okay. Looks like I can. I have access with the library, which is good. So I am going to, here's the abstract. Let me save the PDF. Anytime it gives you the option to save or view the PDF, go ahead and do that. Just because you're paying it with your tuition dollars to have access to all of these different journals. And once you graduate, they're behind a paywall. So even if you're never going to read them again, at least, get an external hard drive and save them, because you never know if you are going to use it. So this looks like it's just a review of, political theory about prisons and the panopticon. It may not have anything to do with anything. It may have everything to do with everything. That's sort of the basis of preliminary research, is that you're just sort of getting an idea of what you could potentially, and I'm going to try and cite this so that way it's already ready for me. We're going to select APA, and I'm going to copy and paste it, and it looks like the information's accurate. So I'm going to leave that for right now. I'm not going to look for a quote. This is, again, just getting an idea. But if I wanted to do more than the university library and I wanted to look somewhere else, I could always, hold on, I could always make sense out of that. I could always go to Google Scholar, which we kind of we covered in these readings here. So if I wanted to talk about, if I wanted to look in Google Scholar, I might search for over policing and attendance, let's see, in K through 12, just to see if there's anything that pops up. Now, kind of like what we talked about or what they talked about in the videos, that you can customize the range to make sure that you're getting the most relevant research within 5 to 10 years is usually the good, like a good frame of reference. But let's just see what they have to say. So consequences of police in schools. This is more about just over policing Black and brown student behavior, which might be interesting in like a broader scope, but it doesn't really have anything to do with attendance. But it might be a useful source for me to maybe lay the groundwork later on. So I'm going to download the PDF of this section. Oh, goodness gracious. And this is from a law library, so I know it's, at the very least, it's peer reviewed, just in a different sense. And it's not even working. All right, so maybe we'll try a different article, so that way it's a little easier. Let's see, effects of safety strategies on K through 12. Oh, okay, so here we have the constitutional cost of school policing, 2022, not too bad. Compulsory attendance, so it looks like it's touching all of these bases here. And it's from another law library. So, I'm not a lawyer, but again, it might be interesting to kind of take a look at a source like this. Not necessarily required. Let's see, download. Okay, so now I have this source here. It's already been saved here. So I've got a citation right here, right? It's not perfect. I can already tell it's not perfect, but at least it's a frame of reference here. So I can make that 12. The way that I would change that is by abbreviating the letters. And then I might get a DOI or some sort of URL if a DOI is not available, like that. Just like that. Okay. And I have it downloaded somewhere, so I can always take a look at that a little bit later. Let's see if I can find one more source, because the assignment for the mind map requires 3 to 4 preliminary sources. So maybe I can take a look and see. These are just more policies in general. All right, so let's take a look at JSTOR. I mentioned something about Davis. So if I want to do Davis and abolition, she does a lot. She does a lot of work on abolition, reconsidering politics. Here's an interview with Angela Davis, which might be interesting. Teaching against the prison industrial complex, that's interesting. So it's not necessarily Davis per se, but it references her book, Are Prisons Obsolete? So that's interesting. I might actually have to take a look at that. So I'm going to, for now, download that and copy, paste that into my little doc that I have going here. And I'm going to cite it in APA, even if it's not perfect, and I'm going to adjust it. And again, these may or may not have anything to do with anything, but it's a place to get started, right? Um, and now one last thing I'm going to do is I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now that I have sort of gathered sources, I would, in theory, go back and read them and see if they would work. See if they would work for the kind of idea that I have. If not, I can look for another source. But for now, I can always do this. But a lot of these are peer review sources. If you wanted to do like the school to prison pipeline, and they've got, a couple of organization websites here. The ACLU has some information here, and even Wikipedia could be useful. And sometimes they provide sources at the very end, and a lot of sources, so you can verify if any of this information might be useful. So I think that I will include there as well. And I'll just do school to prison pipeline, and we'll call it Wikipedia. Just for now, it's not a perfect citation. I can fix it later. And there's the site, and there's the link for that. So I've gathered some sources here, right? Now I can go back and I can read through them very quickly to see if there's any ideas that are sort of resonating with anything that I brainstormed. And then I will go and create my mind map. So now we are going to go and create our mind map in the next video.